Welcome, everyone. I'm Nancy Steck, and I'm with the New Jersey Lawyers Assistance Program. And as we're getting ready to start and waiting for some more people to arrive, I just want to let you know that you as participants will be muted throughout the session. There is a Q&A at the end of the session to which you can submit written questions or comments in the Q&A area. And you can do that throughout the presentation or at the end of the presentation. That's up to you. But we will deal with them at the end of Randy's presentation today. If during the program you encounter any technical difficulties, you'll have to deal with Zoom help with that because there's probably nothing that we can do to help you. I also wanted to let you know that today's session is being recorded and will be available on Lawyers Assistance YouTube channel. You can go to our website, njlap.org, and find information about the YouTube channel, the things that are posted there, and the rest of the seminars that we're offering this week. And I also want to acknowledge the joint effort of the Bar Association Special Committee on Lawyer Wellbeing, the Young Lawyers Division, and New Jersey Lawyers Assistance for making these programs happen this week. Also, so that you know, don't leave when Randy's done and we're done with the Q&A at the end of the program. Shane Scott is going to be leading us through a 5-minute guided meditation, which will help you transition back to your day. And it was a wonderful experience last night, and I'm sure it will be again today too. So please stay around and join us for that. And I think we're probably ready to get started. So thank you for joining us for today's program, Time Management Equals Stress Management, Taking Control of Your Destiny in Turbulent Times. Our speaker, Randy Fisher, has provided workshops for us in the past on topics such as social intelligence, emotional intelligence. And I can tell you from personal experience that every time I've been to a workshop of his or gotten into a conversation with him, I've gotten more than I bargained for in a good way. So I'm expecting that we will all be walking away with some tools today that we can use in our immediate future. Randy Fisher is a marketing and communications professional based in Somerset, New Jersey. He advises and mentors entrepreneurs and startup companies. He also enjoys helping people in career transition to get interviews and land jobs. Randy teaches part-time at Rutgers with courses in business and proposal writing and interviewing skills. Randy, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Nancy. I'm going to share my screen here. And whoops. Oh, we started with the end first. Okay, so first of all, I want to say hello and welcome you to this talk, and I'm going to share some ideas about how to both manage time and some of the stress that we've all been dealing with. And usually in a talk, I start off with something humorous. I try to find some anecdote or something that's amusing about the particular situation, and I have to say that I don't really have anything like that right now because it's not the most humorous, joyous time, but it is a meaningful time, and each of us has been touched and affected by the coronavirus in many different ways, and so I want to acknowledge that, and that's really important in terms of going forward and managing both time and stress, and developing some strategies is, first of all, acknowledging that this is a difficult time. There are many new things that we have to deal with, many unanticipated concerns and consequences. And I think at this time, we all have to be really quite gentle with ourselves and the people in our circles, because they too are going through some challenges. So let me continue. I have some slides and some thoughts I'd like to share with you, and then I welcome your comments, your feedback, your ideas, your thoughts, your experiences. As this sort of presentation is concluded. So let me just whoops. So Nancy introduced me. This is me. This is maybe a younger version of me, but it still is about 90% accurate. I'm going to just jump right into the situation at hand. this is an unprecedented time, you know, and I mean, unless you were alive in 1918, which most of us were not, we don't have the experience of dealing with this systemic, worldwide pandemic virus situation that has no cure, where there's not enough tests. I mean, it's absolutely unprecedented. And if you're reeling from the shock and the change, then the only real positive thing here is that everyone around you can relate to this experience. You're not alone. And so we're going to talk about that. But I think I just wanted to set that up is that, you know, who could have imagined, you know, that we would have been in this situation? Even the people, even the medical people who foresaw that there could be a pandemic, no one had any idea that the toll this would take on jobs, on the economy, on people's mental health. No one had any idea about the scale of the impact. So, so that's just really important to, you know, we don't need a lot of slides to show you that. It's just, this is a brand new world that we're living in, and it requires different ways of managing our time and adapting. And it takes time to do that, and gentleness on self. So one of the problems I think that we're facing is that there's this massive shift away from, you know, pedal to the metal, go, 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 jumping into the car, taking the train, you know, multitasking to the max, and getting many, many things done. And these days, you know, we're sheltering in place. We're spending an awful lot of time alone. Some people may have never spent this much time alone. Some people might, you know, really, really uncomfortable about being away from work, away from going to the office every day and socializing with others and having that visual connection of people whom they could talk to, let alone if they did talk to it. You know, it's really nice. It's nice to see people from afar, but not really interact with them. And, you know, spending all this time at home on our own, you know, with our families. Maybe we're spending too much time with our families, you know, our children. Just even if you live with your parents, so that it sort of goes both ways. You know, both ways. You know, either we're on our own, we're with others, and in, you know, too much of a bad thing is a really bad thing, and too much of a good thing is a bad thing. And I think another part here, which is really, really challenging, is, you know, if we're anxious, which many of us are, and very legitimately so, we spend a lot of time in our own mind with our own thoughts, you know, thinking realistically, catastrophizing, reading the news. Well, there's a downer right there. In fact, the news is so bad, an actor, John Krasinski, started like a video channel called something like Good News. So we have something positive to look forward to. But the idea here is that, you know, we have more time on our hands than ever, and it's a challenge to manage that time. So, which is somewhat different than, you know, when we're in the workplace and we don't have enough time, and we have you know, another challenge. So within this context of too much time, you know, I talked a little bit about this. We have, you know, this expectation. Look, we live in a culture where going to work is highly valued. Our entire identity is focused on going to work. And if we're not motivated, maybe people in a sort of regular work situation might see us as lazy or unmotivated. And we have some certain expectations of ourselves as to how we should perform in any given situation. So that creates a lot more stress and a lot more pressure on ourselves. Another thing is, who's waiting for a stimulus check? I mean, I know I am. I have that informed delivery service, the post office, where I can see the mail before it physically appears. And, could I use that money? Of course I could. And so, many of you would probably be in a similar boat. You see whether you've been laid off or you're working part-time or you still have work, but you might read the tea leaves and say, well, how much longer can my employer go and keep me aboard? How is that going to impact my life if I don't have any money coming in? How am I going to pay those bills? It's enough to keep you awake 24 hours a day. And after 3 days of that, it's not an enjoyable place to be. Some other ideas here is that, some workplaces are opening, but when am I going back to work? Under what conditions? Am I going to get sick by the other people in the office? Or what about if I actually have to see a client? Are they going to take me out? Those are very valid concerns and add to a really, stressful or pressure cooker kind of situation that only elevates the stress that we feel. The list goes on, where everybody's afraid, I think, in some ways. Who hasn't had the experience? I went to Costco last week, and there was some fella who rushed by me without a face mask, and I was stunned. I was trapped in Costco, which usually that's an enjoyable experience, but in this case, I was really scared, and I could not wait to get out of there with my pretty filled cart of groceries. Okay, so many of us are working from home. I think most of the panelists here are working from home. And the problem is, I was starting to see articles where there's an expectation from the employer that we put in extra work. All that time that we save traveling back and forth, an hour at a stretch. Well, there is an expectation or a tacit expectation that we put in extra time and we produce at a higher level. And that is wearing. You might feel in your work that you might be taken advantage of, or you're putting in the extra time because you don't want to be in the next wave of layoffs. And those are like really legitimate concerns. Okay, so here we are on Zoom. We're all in Zoom land. So we've had to adapt to this somewhat awkward and uncomfortable technology that simulates us being connected, but with very little training or support. We've been asked to dive in, continue to do our work at the highest level we can, and support, forget about that. Just figure it out as you go along, and hopefully, we can all work at the highest level. And then another thing that's coming along that's really quite concerning. I mean, this isn't new, but with Zoom, you can actually monitor whether or not the person is basically chained to a desk and doing work. And so being monitored while you're working and stressed out and trying to do your work, that's really tough. It's really a toxic combo, and it doesn't make things easier. And I think over time, as long as this kind of drags out, people talk, it could be months, it could be I teach at Rutgers, it could be January before I can go back to the classroom. Like, that's a long stretch. I didn't I didn't plan for this, and neither did you. But it makes for really, really tough times. Okay. So work-life balance. Well, I think at the end of this seminar, Cheyne is going to provide a much-needed session of relaxation. I think after that long list, I think we all kind of need it now. But I think that, you know, we're working at home, we're being asked to do a lot, we're asking ourselves to do a lot. Work-life balance, it seems like it's gone. Seems like everything is out of balance, and you know, our entire schedules, the way we have organized them in the past, what might have worked for us in the past, doesn't work for us now. So we're going to talk about a tool to apply to any type of time management, you know, any other tool or intervention that could really work and give you some more pleasure and happiness in actually trying out new things. Okay, so just a quick comment here. So there's a fella, he was a Hungarian biologist. He developed a stress theory back in the 30s by observing rats, how they respond to stimulus and what the immune system does. And over time, we have an initial shock, which would be, you know, the coronavirus is here, and we have to, you know, they shut down the workplaces, and then now we're at home. And in between sort of phase 2 and 3, we have to, you know, we're in this sort of shock, you know, what do we do? It's all different. We have to somehow get our work done. And then we struggle. I would say that would have been probably the first 2 weeks of, you know, being asked to stay at home. And then as we grow a little more comfortable towards adapting to new technologies and new ways of work, we still have some anger and resistance around, well, why should we do this? And I didn't plan for this. I didn't agree to this. And then over time, it evens out. So it's just interesting to be aware of. Many of you may have seen this scale. It's called the stress scale, and it talks about the 10 most stressful life events. And I think in this crisis, you know, whether you've experienced a personal loss, somebody has died, or you know of somebody who has died, change in the workplace, closeness with relatives, this scale shows the impact on your immune system. And if you tally up the points and you get to 100, you have various losses. And the points are, I think it's above 150, you have like a 50% likelihood of getting an illness. And if it's over 300 points, you have an 80% likelihood of getting an illness. So that's even before the coronavirus showed up. So we're living, and if you've had 2 stressful events of the same kind, you just add them together. And so many of us have, you know, 150, 200 points at least. And this is not subsiding, this is continuing. So it's just a sort of a visual way of looking at what we're dealing with. Okay, so I mentioned a fresh perspective. So, you know, in preparing for this talk, I was thinking, you know, how can I prepare something new? You know, when I looked at time management, there's you know, it's sort of been beaten to death. So, you know, so I came up with this. I thought, well, what if I looked at time as an acronym? And I came up with a set of shortcuts, if you will, to try you know, regardless of the technique that you use this approach to actually get some results and actually stick with, you know, with whatever you're choosing to do. So So here's the acronym. So T is for try something new or old. Okay, and we're gonna do, I'm gonna go and give you an example. I'll just look at what the time is here. You try something, let's say you wanna make a change. Let's say you're working in your house and it's not working well for you. And so you want to try to be more effective. So you make a small adjustment and you just try it and see what happens without judging whether or not you're being successful. Or you could try something else that worked for you in the past that maybe didn't work for you before, but because it's a new situation, a new context, it has a newness about it, a novelty. The second part is to inquire. So when you try something new, ask yourself questions. How did that work for me? What did I feel? What did I experience? And I'll have some further questions here. The M is to monitor, is to just check in with yourself and observe what's happening, not to change anything, but to just monitor in yourself. And then the E is for evaluate, is how, did that work for me? What could I have done better? What could work better? So let's hear, I think I have, so here's an example. So I have two examples. One is, and actually, normally, if we were in a face-to-face session, we would do the Q&A at this point, where I'd go and I'd ask you for some specific examples of what you might want to try or what you might experience, and then we talk through the TIME. Okay, but we don't have that opportunity right now, so we'll do it this way, and we'll get some comments at the end, which is coming very soon, by the way. Okay, so when you're sitting at your desk all day, it's a recipe that on its own is a recipe for getting sick. You might be crunched over at the computer all day, and at the end of the day you get up and you can barely move. Well, it's probably a good idea that maybe one of the goals is to have a little goal and say, okay, well, every hour I'm gonna get up and I'll model it for you. I'm gonna do like a yoga stretch. Okay, I do 2 or 3 of those, or I do some breathing or something to just change my posture, my perspective, get some air at a different altitude into my lungs, have a laugh. Sometimes when you do that, it really, really helps. So for the fitness, okay, so let's say, we're going to try something new. Visualize it. You might get new shoes. You might use those shoes, those running shoes that you bought 2 years ago that are sitting, gathering dust, truly gathering dust. You may have to blow the dust off your shoes. Or a new shirt, the shirt that you bought, but you maybe didn't like the way it looked on you. But now it's okay because there's no one outside to look at you. And if they're wearing masks, so much the better, because their comments towards you will be muffled. It might be, you might have a watch. You might want to measure sort of what you're doing. You might want to go on YouTube and see what other people are doing. So it's just really to first check in, to try, look at something new. And, if let's say you're going to go run, for example, well, you're probably not going to go run for a marathon, and we don't want you to do that. But go out and run or walk for 5 or 10 minutes. Do something small that you can reflect on and that you can do. It's actually doable. And you could visualize yourself having fun for that period of time. If you're doing something and it's drudgery, stop. Because guess what? You're not going to do it tomorrow. So the next part of the model is the acronym is to say, inquire, ask yourself, well, why is it important for me to say, get some fitness? Well, it might be because I have diabetes and, I need some, I need, I need to have some movement. My mood is dropping. I don't feel so good. I don't feel as alive or connected as I used to. Well, how did I do while I was doing it? Oh, well, my feet really hurt. Well, if that's the case, we can make some adjustments in the evaluation phase, okay? But it's okay to say, oh gosh, that was cruel to me. I don't really want to do that. That's okay. Or, boy, that was oddly enjoyable. I really can't tell you why, but it was. What happened? What about the weather? I don't know if you've been outside lately. I was outside yesterday and it was like, boy, I really want to live here. But today, like, I had to get my winter coat. Now, if I was going to go running or walking, well, actually I did. And I forgot my headband, which keeps my ears, warm and free from the wind whistling into it. This morning, my walk, was it as bad as I thought? Well, once I got into it, even though I was uncomfortable, no, it wasn't. It was pretty good. And then I coordinated with my wife and she brought me a cappuccino from, from McDonald's. So anyway, so I'm just saying, what I'm saying is ask yourself some questions and don't worry about the answers, and certainly do not judge yourself in any way. Monitor. Okay, so here, we all have thoughts, and when we're, trying out something new, there's this chitter chatter, pitter patter in our head. We might be nervous. If we're running, maybe we'll get out of breath and we get concerned. We might be very comfortable or uncomfortable in the clothes that we wear, in how our body is moving, the weather, if we had pain. Just put your finger or your mind or your mindfulness on those things. And again, not to judge it, but just to observe it. And then this other part here is then you evaluate it. You go and again, just be gentle on yourself. What worked well, what could work better, and say, oh, okay, when the temperature goes under 50 degrees, I have to wear my headband. Or, gee, maybe the goal that I created for myself is too much. Maybe I need to pull back, because if I work at it step by step, I'll reach the goal. I can reach any goal that I want. So maybe I just need to pull back. So that's, and then incorporate that into, go back up to the T again and try again, visualize it and think about how you're going to just try something new and just be very gentle on yourself. Okay, so here's an example for work, because you might be saying, well, that's really nice, but how does this relate to my work? So I've got an example for you. So, we're all working every day, maybe not as comfortable as this lady in this photo. Some of you might be in your pajamas. That's okay, comfortable. But, try something new. Get out of every hour, stretch, or get out of your chair, or try a new technique. I'm going to mention the Pomodoro technique in a moment. Ask yourself, when you try something new, how that went. How did it go before? What were you thinking about before you even started work? Were you dreading it? Were you dreading sitting down? Is the chair that you have comfortable? Were you dressed properly? Are your children, is there noise coming from your house? Are your children getting in the way? Is there too much closeness with your spouse? Just ask these questions, and again, all without judgment. And you know, again, observe in yourself. And Cheyne, I think when she, you know, a critical part of meditation is noticing, observing things that occur in yourself, not trying to stop them necessarily, but just observe them like floating, like clouds that float. You know, the clouds, they float in the sky, and you see them coming towards you, and you go, oh, well, that's nice. And then they float past you, and just like that, thoughts and feelings, they behave in the same way. So just monitoring yourself, you know, what did it feel like when I changed my chair? Or I have one client whose partner wanted to help somebody write the GMATs, and that she didn't have a good chair, so she took the chair from her husband, who has to work. And he said he was like standing up in the whole Zoom meeting, clearly uncomfortable. And he said, oh, well, you know, this won't be for much longer. He said, it'll just be for 10 days. And I go, 10 days? That's an eternity. So, you know, 10 days of having your back hurt is really rough. So, you know, when you try something new, you know, check in and see how you're feeling about it. Are you more alert or tired? Are you actually looking forward to what you're doing? If you're not, that's a signal to make an adjustment, okay? And then do you have more energy, okay? Again, in evaluation, you've basically created a little accomplishment, or you've come up with you've accomplished a little thing. Again, you're not looking to make huge changes here, but a series of little changes that you can build on and work on and keep going with. And then think about what adjustment could you make for a better experience or result. And it's just that simple, okay? So I mentioned there's a couple of techniques, and I don't know how to get rid of this here. I found a couple, but if you go online, there are thousands of techniques and probably tens of thousands of
Hello, everyone. This is Noreen, your tech person, and Randy seems to have frozen for a moment, so we'll give him a chance to catch up, and I think he's coming back now.
Have I frozen? Oh, really? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I had, am I back?
Yes, you are, Randy. You're back now.
Oh, okay. Sorry, but so there's I was saying there's many time management techniques, but and you can easily just put time management into a keyword search for Google, and you'll come up with them. And using the time method that I just shared with you, you can use basically any technique. So I shared two here that are probably well known. One is the Pomodoro technique. And if we were in a class, in a meeting room, I might ask you, what origin of the Pomodoro technique? Why is it called the Pomodoro technique? But actually, I was quite surprised. It comes from the person that created it, used a timer that looked like a Pomodoro tomato. So anyways, his idea is working in chunked periods. So you set aside 25 minutes of time, you work totally on that, and then you take a 4 or 5 minute breaks. Do it 25 minutes, 4 or 5 minute breaks, and then so it goes. So, and you do that 4 or 5 times. You can increase that to like 30 minutes or even 50 minutes at a time. And some people say even 90 minutes to get maximum productivity. You know, another what I've noticed, if you want to reclaim some time and get rid of some stress in your life, which I didn't put here, but turn notifications on your phones. Most of us are completely addicted to seeing what is basically useless and irrelevant information somebody is sending us. Okay, so just you can go into of your phone and just disable the notifications. You're going to check it anyways, but this way you won't be prompted so often. Okay, and you'll be surprised how much time you'll save during the day by not checking those. And again, you could disable some of them, or you could decide to only check them, 10 times a day instead of 15 times a day, or once every minute. So try a technique. The other person who's very famous is Stephen Covey, and he talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people. His ideas are to be proactive, to start with the end in mind, to think win-win, and there's some 7. You can apply the time model to each of those 7 steps, or if those 7 steps in themselves are, to go deeper within them and focus the time model on parts, elements of those steps. So I just want to recap here. Time here. So look, these are unprecedented times. Nobody was trained for this, and it's completely overwhelming and exhausting. And everybody has experienced a number of losses, whether physical, emotional, spiritual, social. And yet we still have to work and life, and it's not easy. So there's an initial period where we struggle to adapt, where we deal with the shock, we struggle to adapt, we come up with new ways, we're using new technologies, noting that everyone else is in the same body. So we're alone, but we're not alone. We're together, maybe too much with our families. We have thoughts milling around. I've talked about a model for that we could mitigate or reduce some of the stress that we have and reclaim the time, looking at time from a different perspective and using a different model. T for try something new or something older. I for inquire or investigate. Ask ourselves some questions about the experience. M for monitor burdening in us without judging. And then E, evaluate what worked well, what could work better, and what can we try again. And so this is cycle. So I'd like to, I think I'm kind of done. And oh yes, the most important slide of all. What does all this mean? I have you. So I thank you, and I welcome, any thoughts and insights and things you share, and not just with me, but with the other people on this seminar.
Thank you, Randy. We do have some questions in line, but I do want to thank you and just say that for me, some of what came up listening to you are some of the changes that I've been trying to make over the past couple of weeks, and recognizing that I'm not big on structure to begin with, and I'm finding that being at home has required me to put some structure and some regularity into my life, and a schedule, so to speak, which I've never been willing to keep before. And I've been reading a lot about that with internet articles and people who are kind of watching us and looking at what happens. Did you come across anything in your work and research to do this about the positive aspects of sticking with a schedule? And you may not have.
Well, I think that, yeah, I haven't, it's really actually been great observation. Let me just share a little anecdote. At the beginning, I knew that there was absence of structure. So I reached out to a friend who is on the other side of the country, and said to him, I need some structure to get through this. So let's put in place a week call where we talk about a shared interest. And when it starts out, we're going to feel awkward and uncomfortable. But the second time, we're going to wonder how we ever lived without it. And our friendship will grow and strengthen as a result of it. And we'll probably have fun. So, and that's exactly what happens. I mean, this friend of mine now, he calls me before the event. It's like, so let me just share with you what I think is Nancy is, we often structure because it binds us to somebody else's definition of what is required to be done. But if we have a hand in creating, maybe creating a structure that more fits our working style, who we are as a person, and also not creating for us, but creating 10% more structure than we had before. So maybe now you have a weekly meeting on Zoom, or there's a certain deadline that you've created in order to have a more effective working relationship, or you're using technology in a different way. Like now I use a lot of Google Docs because I want to be, I use a combination of Google Docs and WhatsApp. I have immediate feedback. There's no, email in a way doesn't work for me anymore. I have to use WhatsApp or instant messaging alongside of what I'm doing so I can get immediate feedback on what I'm doing so I don't waste time or I don't spend time confused, duplicating effort, or getting demotivated, or allowing different thoughts to creep into my head that are troubling. So or concerning, or wondering about how can I get in touch with somebody else because I'm dependent on that piece of information from them. So I think that's what from my experience, working collaboratively requires a structure, and online requires a different type of structure, using the tools in a different way, and then just aim for a 10% improvement week over week. And if you do that by the end of the weeks, you're at 100% nearly, because it builds on itself.
Right.
Okay.
There's
Noreen
another question that
how
I
do I
wanted
get
to.
Is that the same one?
No, it's a different question. Or there's a question up there, but it looks like
How do
Noreen
I
would like to pipe in. But the question is this for the audience: how do I get motivated to continue with or go back to large projects that will take a lot of time? I started but did not complete, and I must finish. And Noreen, am I guessing correctly that you wanted to respond to this?
No, Nancy, I was just concerned that you weren't seeing the Q&A, and I was going to take it if you weren't seeing it, but I leave it in your hands.
Well, Randy, so what about motivation?
So is it a jump ball? Is it a jump ball? Is it an open?
You're cutting in and out, so I can't hear you. So I'm just going to ask you to address the question.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, when I say, I've often found that I like to take motivation out of the equation, and I focus on a small piece of the project that I do. And and then from doing that, I get back into a rhythm, and then I look for the piece that's required that's adjacent to what I just did. And then I start to feel a little better. And in that becomes the motivation. So Nike has that phrase there, that let's do it. I think it applies here. I think certainly just doing it, but picking something, of all the things you've got to do, and I'm sure in a large project, you got a million tasks. So pick something that you like, pick something that draws to it, and know that there's a bunch of other tasks that are connected to that larger project that are required, and eventually you'll get to them. And then the other thing is, most large projects, you generally have people that provide inputs to those projects. So you get some rhythm back and some clarity about how to work well with what you're dealing with. Then you kind of know what you want to ask people of their contribution to the project. Or you can pull, do that stuff from Stephen Covey and say, okay, well, now that I'm clear about what the piece is done or partially done, I can delegate it to somebody else. Okay, so Lauren says, I really mean a large and tedious task like reviewing, scanning, and shredding files. Oh, okay. Well, of the no delegation possible. Okay. Well, okay. Reviewing, scanning, and shredding. Which one of those three items is the most important? So, okay, so while she's sort of gonna, I would say that you could separate the task out into a percentage of the task. So instead of, it all, trying to do it, like, it's hard to say because I don't know if you're talking about it's a week-long task or you've got, 500 records. But you could chunk it out. You could decide, like, you want to do, I don't know, and then, so if you have 100 records, or if it's 500, you do 100 records a day for a week. And so it's that awful, and you can do it. Get motivated to start doing it again.
I think the one thing, if I can jump in here, that I've read.
How do you get motivated? I mean, if you're being, I think there's, like, if you're doing this because you have a hobby and you're wondering to get motivated, that's one thing. If you're actually paid to do this job and you're required to do it, well, there's motivation right there. How do you say, how come you didn't do it? So, but, how do you get motivated? Just start doing it, but don't, do it a little time and spread it over a period of time.
I'm just going to jump in here for a second, because I think one of the important points that you brought up several times that I think applies to Lauren's question too, is chunking something down into smaller pieces. And whether that's you spend 5 minutes a day doing some activity towards the end of something, or an hour a day, or 5 hours a day, but to not look at the whole thing as one event helps change our relationship to it. I also want to make sure that we have time to close out with Cheyne Scott's leading us in a mindfulness meditation. And I'm not seeing any additional questions at this point. So Randy, thank you. And please stay around with us for our meditation, because I think it will help focus us on what we need to do next and where we're going, and close this out in a nice way. Cheyne Scott is a civil litigation attorney and of counsel with Chasen, Lamparello, Mallon, and Capuzzo. She's active in the New Jersey State Bar Association. She's a member of the Diversity Committee and the Executive Committee of the State Bar Labor and Employment Section. There are lots of other qualifications that I could go into, but related to what she's doing today for us, Cheyne has presented seminars and written about the importance of mindfulness and self-care for attorneys. Specifically, her article, Mindfulness, 4 Simpler Ways to Alleviate Attorney Stress, was published in the July-August 2017 issue of the American Bar Association GP Solo magazine. She also has an article, The ABCs of Emotional Health, that was published July 2019 in the New Jersey Lawyer magazine. So she's well qualified to be doing what she's doing with us here today, as well as practicing law. And Cheyne, I'll leave it to you to take us out.
Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, Randy, for that presentation. I just wanted to quickly say that a lot of the mindfulness that I talk about is based on thoughts and, you know, what we believe or what we think cause our feelings, and those cause us to act or not act in a certain way. And so when people say things like new year, new me, usually it's just new year, same thoughts. And right now we're in the middle of a new crisis, but we still have the same thoughts. So if you thought about, you know, pre-pandemic, you thought, oh, I don't know what to do about a case, or this is too much, or why can't people just cooperate if you're having disagreements with opposing counsel? Those same thoughts are operating right now. I don't know what to do about the pandemic. This is too much. Why can't people just cooperate? You might see things, you know, out in the store, just like Randy said, he saw people without masks. And so we're just thinking like, oh my gosh, why don't people just cooperate? So those same thoughts that you had before are following you now. They're just on 10 because we can't become workaholics and get ourselves out of it. So meditation is a great tool to identify what you're believing or thinking and identify the feelings they're creating. And then it gives you the opportunity to choose to continue to think those thoughts or change them to something else. And so with that being said, if you would like to participate in the meditation, sit up in your chair and you just put your hands in your lap, and we're just going to close our eyes. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a slow, deep breath through the nose. And when you get to the top of the breath, you're going to pause for a second and pull in that last piece of breath. And we're going to try this a couple times because you might be saying, what is she talking about? So you're going to exhale through your mouth, long, slow exhale. When you get to the bottom of that exhale, you're going to push the rest of that little bit of air out. Again, slowly through the nose. And at the top of the inhale, pause and then pull that last bit of breath in. And exhale through the mouth. And at the bottom, when you think you have nothing left, exhale that last bit. Again, in through the nose. At the top, pull. Exhale through the mouth. At the bottom, push. In through the nose. Pull. Through the mouth. Push. A couple more times. In through the nose. Pull. And exhale. Push. One more. And exhale. Push. Now letting your breath go back to normal. In through the nose. Out through the nose. Just noticing how your body feels. Just noticing breath go in through the nose. Notice how your chest expands and contracts. Now let's just take a moment and let the body know it can relax. So focusing on your feet and your toes, and your next exhale, just relax. Legs, relax. Thighs, hips, relax. Lower belly, lower back, relax. Solar plexus, middle of your back, relax. Chest, upper back, relax. Fingers, hands, wrists, relax. Lower arms, elbow, upper arms, Relax. Shoulders, where all that tension is sitting. Relax, let them drop. Your throat. Relax. Your facial muscles, your jaw, the back of your head. Relax. Top of your head. Relax. And just scanning your body, and if you notice any other discomfort or tension, just let your body know it's time to relax. And that you're making a choice right now to just be in this moment. And just knowing that what is outside of you cannot control what you are feeling and thinking right now. Just noticing your body in the chair. Noticing how relaxed you are. And knowing that you can feel this anytime, regardless of what's going on outside of you. We're just going to take a few more breaths. And preparing to end the meditation. Take one more of those big breaths in. Then pull at the top. And exhale out with the mouth. And push that out. Now open your eyes. Thank you very much. I meditate every night like this. And if you want to learn more, you can go to my website at spirituallitigator.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. I'm on there all the time. Nancy, I think you're going to close this out.
I am. Thank you very much. That was perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope that we see you tomorrow and Friday as well. You should be receiving a feedback form in your email. Please give us whatever feedback you can. It always helps us make some decisions about where we're going next and how to do things better for you. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Take care.